Hello all and welcome to part 4 of the topic basics of accounting. In the previous 3 sessions, we have seen ourselves growing in this particular subject. And today, that is in session 4, we are going to learn a topic which is the heart of the subject matter of accounting. We are going to cover a very important topic, and that topic is accounting concepts and conventions. So let's focus on today's presentation, and any questions that you have, you can put those questions in the comment box. I'll be more than happy to answer those for everyone. So let's begin with today's topic. Now, what are the areas or topics that we are going to cover in this particular session? We have accounting concepts and accounting conventions. So as I said, accounting concept and conventions, though we see that there is difference between concepts and conventions, but if we look at a bigger picture, we say there is no difference at all. Now, these concepts and these conventions forms the base of the subject matter of accounting. A clear-cut understanding of concepts and conventions will definitely help you master this particular subject. So let's understand first. There are 10 accounting concepts and 4 accounting conventions. So which are those concepts and which are those conventions? Let's have a look at those. Now, what do you mean by a concept? So concept basically refers to foundational assumptions. We say postulates, basics, tenets, or objectives of the subject matter of accounts. So the foundational aspects we say of the subject is called as concepts. In the previous session as well, I have stressed upon this particular point. That is, if your foundation is very strong, you can build as many floors as possible on a structure called accounts. So the word concept means an idea or a belief which has universal application. Remember, we do business not only in India, not only in Sri Lanka, not only in Pakistan, Bangladesh, or neighboring countries of India. Business is universal. Business is done across all the countries of our world. So that's why what concepts and conventions we are talking about has universal acceptance. Like how we say the sun rises in the east, and this particular scientific knowledge, it holds good for the entire universe. Similarly, what concepts and what does this concept say has universal application. Means you do your business in America, you do your business in Australia, the concepts and conventions will remain same. Now, since these are because of a broad consensus, these are also referred to as GAAP, GAAP, which stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. Now, let's look at each of the concept in detail. I mentioned there are 10 accounting concepts and 4 accounting conventions. So first one we will have an understanding of. Now, I will go one step ahead from what is mentioned in the standard textbooks on the subject accounts. I will not only mention what does this concept say, but I will also focus on the application of the concept. How is this concept applied in the accounting books? So let's look at the first concept, that is business or separate entity concept. The basic foundation of the subject says business is different from businessman. So we separate business from the business person. Very important point. All accounting records are maintained from business's point of view and not from the businessman's point of view. So imagine X is the owner of the business and we have a business, X's business. All accounting records are maintained from X's business point of view and not from X personal account. So business is different from businessman and all accounting records are maintained from business's point of view. How do you apply this particular concept in the books? Amount contributed by a businessman to his business, which is known as capital, is also recorded on the liability side of the balance sheet. Now, in the earlier session, we have learned what do you mean by capital. We know what is a liability. Liabilities are obligations of the business to an outsider. How liabilities are recorded on the liability side of the balance sheet, that is obligations to outsiders, how it is recorded on the liability side of the balance sheet. Similarly, obligation of the business towards its owner, that is the businessman, is also recorded on the liability side of the balance sheet, but the name liability is not given. Instead, the word capital is given or equity is given. Remember, spokes of the wheel of accounting, equity or capital, we say. So how an outsider's liability is recorded on the liability side, similarly, insider's liability, businessman giving money to his business, is also recorded on the liability side of the balance sheet, but it is recorded under the heading capital and not under any heading of liability. Third point, amount withdrawn for personal use. Drawings is the term that we use. So businessman is withdrawing 10,000 rupees from his business to pay his son's school fees. Now in the accounting books, we don't record paid son's school or college fees in the books. We simply record it as drawings because accounting records are maintained from business's point of view, not from businessman's point of view. So a list of his personal expenses will not be recorded in the books of the business. So understand, business is different from businessman. All accounting records are from business's point of view, not from businessman's point of view. Capital, which is the amount payable by the business to the businessman, is recorded on the liability side of the balance sheet, and also all his personal expenses, amount withdrawn from the business and meeting his personal expenses, are not shown in the business's books at all. It is simply recorded as drawings, just one heading mentioned, and below that, whatever amount that he has withdrawn for whichever personal use, for that matter, we simply record it as drawing. So this is about business or separate entity concept. Let's move to the second very, very important concept called going concern concept. You might have seen some advertisement, Raymond's, since 1800. It's been nearly 221 years that that company has continued. Similarly, when a business person starts his business, suppose imagine you start your business today, how long your business is going to continue, even as a business person, we have absolutely no idea at all. So when we start a business, our thought process is simple, that the business will continue for a long period of time. And when I say business will continue for a long period of time, that means there is no chance of closing down in the near future. If you start your business today, you are not going to close down your business next month, or for that matter next year, or after 5 years, or after 10 or 20 or 30 years. Say, suppose if X has started his business and he continues maybe say for 12, 15 years, what will happen? You know, X may not be well, X's wife may take charge of the business, or X's son and daughter may take charge of the business. X may die, but someone in X's family will take over that business and business will continue. That's why we say, you know, if you take, for example, your college might have started 40 years, 60 years ago. The first principal of the college is no longer the principal today. The first students of the college are not continuing as students today. The teachers also are not the same teachers. So teachers have come and gone, principals have come and gone, students have come and gone, but the college continues to go on. Similarly, business owners may keep changing, but the business will continue for a long period of time. And there is no intention of closing down the business in the near future. Now, what is the application of this particular concept? We have fixed assets in the business, resources controlled by an enterprise. Now, these fixed assets are not to be valued at its market price. What do you mean by market price? Market price is, if, let's imagine I have a piece of land which I purchased somewhere some 10 years ago. That is, business purchased 10 years ago, say paying around 10 lakh rupees. Now, after 10 years, today, the market price of that land and building is, let's say, 80 lakhs. In the accounting books of the business, we don't record 80 lakhs because 80 lakhs is the market price. An important point to remember, market price will be realized only when we sell that land and building. Now, since we have no intention of closing down our business, assets will not be sold. Assets are meant for use in the business. So when you are recording the values of asset in the books of the business, you are not going to record it at market value. Rather, you are going to record it at historical cost which you have paid to acquire the asset, which has become history now. That's why the term historical cost, less depreciation. Depreciation is reduction over a period of so many years. So each year when you use the asset, its value will keep coming down, and that how much it decreases, that amount is called as depreciation. So all fixed assets in the business will be recorded at historical cost less depreciation and not on its market price, because market price is realized only when you decide to sell the assets. So the question arises, when are you going to sell the assets? Only when you want to close down your business, you will decide to sell the assets. Now, since there is no intention to close down the business, there is no question of market value. So assets will be recorded at historical cost less depreciation in the books of the business. Second application, important application is, as far as expenditure in the business is concerned, business is going to spend. That is called expenditure. Expenditure are classified into two categories: capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. Remember, capital expenditure is when you are purchasing an asset. Revenue expenditure is the amount spent by the business for day-to-day running of the business. Say, for example, salary, rent, insurance, wages, audit fees, office expenses, printing and stationery, postage. The list is long. So expenses which are incurred for day-to-day running of the business are revenue expenditure, and it actually becomes a part of profit and loss account. Whereas capital expenditure, assets purchased, appear in the balance sheet. So due to going concern concept, we make a distinction between capital expenditure and revenue expenditure. So all revenue expenditure, that is expenditure for day-to-day working, will appear in the revenue account, or we call that as profit and loss account. Whereas all capital expenditure incurred on purchase of asset will all be recorded in the balance sheet. So we are going to distinguish this capital expenditure and revenue expenditure on account of going concern concept. Next, we look at again another very, very important concept called accounting period concept. Let's start with the base statement. I said business will continue for a long period of time. How long? Even the business person is not very sure how long his business will continue. So what do? We break up the life of the business into parts of equal time interval. We are going to break up the life of the business into parts of equal time interval, and each interval, each time period, that is called as accounting period. And generally we take a period of 12 months, 1 year as the accounting period. So it is done. Why do we break the life of the business into parts of equal interval? The idea is to take the market advantage and timely decision making. Suppose there is a lot of demand for the companies or businesses product in the market right now. Business has to take the initiative because there is a market advantage. Similarly, timely decision making will help the business do well. So for timely decision making, to check whether the business is doing well or not, whether any stringent decisions are to be taken, or whether the business is going on very, very smoothly. So to take stock of how our business is doing, the life of the business is broken into parts of equal interval. So that is called as accounting period. And generally we take a period of 12 months as an accounting period. That's why we say we find profit and loss account for the year. We prepare balance sheet at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, for the year, we say we are restricting our accounting period to a period of 12 months. Now, that's not all. If I look at from the company's point of view, from the corporate point of view, even a period of 12 months is considered too long a period of time for timely decisions. Taking a decision over a period of 12 months is considered as a significant time period, because market advantage may be lost. Decisions may not be taken timely. So business may lose an opportunity. That's why from the corporate world point of view, that 12 months period is also broken into 4 quarters of 3 months each. And as we all understand, the period of 12 months in accounting subject, or for that matter, even in taxation subject, is not the calendar year. It is not from January to December. It is basically from April to March. And that's why this 12 months divided into 4 quarters of 3 months each. So first quarter begins from 1st of April to 30th of June. The second quarter begins from 1st of July to 30th of September. The third quarter begins, that is from 1st of October to 31st of December. And the fourth quarter begins from 1st of January to 31st of March. So these are the 4 quarters that we were talking about. So 12 months period is also considered as too long a period of time from the company's point of view. That's why that period of 12 months is broken into 4 quarters of 3 months each. And because of this particular concept, we have terms like Q on Q, Y on Y, unaudited quarterly results. These are all an outcome of accounting period concept. So understand this. What is Q on Q? Q on Q is nothing but quarter on quarter results. So if I want to check whether my business has done well in comparison to last year's performance, I take the first quarter, that is 1st April to 30th June performance of this year, and I compare that with 1st April to 30th June performance of my last year. So that is quarter on quarter, you can say, kind of comparison. If I take YOY, YOY stands for year on year. How was the company's performance in the last year? That is for the period 1920. And how is the performance of the company in this year? That is 2021. And usually, whenever you see quarterly results published in the newspapers about different public companies, usually we'll find the word unaudited, means not checked by an outsider, not checked by a chartered accountant. So basically 8 out of 10 companies will present unaudited quarterly results, because you need to show performance. Company has to show performance that they have done well in comparison to the last quarter. Remember the meaning of accounting? Informed judgments and decisions by the users of the information. So company definitely will give their results at the end of the year. There is no doubt about it. But along with it, company will have to present its quarterly results also. Because as an investor or as a prospective investor, I would like to check how my company has done in comparison to last year, either year on year comparison, or you can take Q on Q comparison. Even a first quarter result will be compared with second quarter result, second with the third, and third with the fourth, or we say annual results of the last year compared with annual results of the current year. So this is about the accounting period concept. Next, we have money measurement concept. Basic point we have seen, transaction, exchange of money or money's worth, we say. So when I say money measurement concept, it is very, very clear. So money measurement concept is again the basic aspect. Transaction, exchange of money or money's worth. So anything and everything to deal with money is recorded by the business. So only we say monetary transactions find a place in the accounting books. You may have a piece of land, say 10 cents land. You may have a building, let's say 30,000 square feet, or you can take square meters. You have got 10 tables, 5 chairs, 25 tube lights, say 20 fans, 1 air conditioner. These are not the units. So anything and everything in an accounting book the common denominator is the currency of the country. So since we are operating our business in India, INR, Indian rupees, will be considered as the currency. So anything and everything in accounting subject is expressed in terms of money. So we have a common denominator, and that denominator is Indian rupee. So currency of the country will be used. If I have a business in Dubai, it will be dirhams. If I'm doing my business in America, that would be dollars. If I'm doing my business in Australia, that would be Australian dollars. So let's be very clear. The currency of the country in which the business is operating, that will be the common denominator or the criteria for recording the item and the amount as far as in the current, in that country's currency is concerned. But we have a drawback. The biggest drawback of the subject that we are learning, the biggest demerit that the subject we are learning is inflationary effect is not considered at all. 1 rupee of today is not equal to 1 rupee after 1 year, because the value of 1 rupee goes down. If I have 100 rupees in my pocket today, and second situation, if I've got 100 rupees in my pocket after 1 year, remember the 100 rupees in my pocket today has more value than 100 rupees in my pocket after 1 year. Because as time passes by, the value of money goes down because general price level increases. That is the basic meaning of inflation. So inflationary effect is not taken into account by our subject financial accounting. Even depreciation, in the course you are going to study about a concept called depreciation. Depreciation is just a standardized practice developed by the accountants. When we say depreciation on machinery is 10,000, we cannot say with authority that it is more than 10,000 or less than 10,000. That 10,000 is not an actual cost. It is only an estimated cost. That's why we say depreciation is just a standardized practice which is developed by accountants. Now, what is the application of this particular concept? Whenever you draw a ledger account, whenever you write a journal entry, whenever you prepare trial balance, or when you prepare final accounts, or anything that you do in accounts, you prepare an amount column. And usually you record rupees as the common currency. So preparation of an amount column in the books of accounts, that itself is the application of money measurement concept. Next, we have cost concept, a very interesting and a very simple one. How much amount the business has spent to acquire an asset, that is called as cost. It is the measurement base used in accounting. Actually, there are 4 measurement bases in accounting. Cost or historical cost is one base. We just saw it earlier as well. Then we have something called as the current cost. Then we have something called as net realizable value. And finally, taking inflation into account, we talk about the present value. The discounting factor is applicable. So basically, there are 4 measurement bases in accounting. We have historical cost, we have the current cost, then we have the net realizable value, and then we have the present cost. So cost concept is one of the measurement bases as we understand. Let's take example. Business is buying a property worth 1 crore rupees, and the business is purchasing that at 96 lakhs only. So the question arises, how much amount should we record in the accounting books? The answer is simple. I go back to the first statement on the screen. Amount spent by the business to acquire an asset is called cost. So to acquire that 1 crore worth property, business is spending 96 lakhs only. Therefore, the value of the asset that will be recorded in the books is only rupees 96 lakhs. Property may be worth 1 crore, but since the business has paid only 96 lakhs, 96 lakhs will be the value recorded in the books. Remember, historical cost. And on that historical cost, you are going to charge depreciation. So what is the application of cost concept? It is on the cost of the asset and not on the market value. Remember going concern concept? Market value is when you decide to sell the asset. When do you decide to sell the asset? When you want to close down your business. But going concern concept says no closing down the business in the near future. So depreciation will be calculated on the cost of the asset and not on the market value. Next, we have dual aspect concept. In the last session, we have studied a double entry system of bookkeeping. Every transaction has two aspects. Every transaction has two aspects, and recording both the debit as well as the credit aspect for all transactions is called as double entry system. So dual aspect concept simply says businesses have to follow double entry system of bookkeeping. Both the debit and the credit aspect of a given transaction must be recorded as per this concept. So fulfillment of double entry principle itself is the application of this dual aspect concept. Next, we have matching concept. See, we match, we compare, we make a comparison. Now, what do you match in accounting? We match our current year revenue with the current year expenses to know what is the result of the business. See, profit is simply the result of the business. Loss is also the result of the business. How in examination, academics, we have passing and failing. Pass is also a result. Failing is also a result. Pass is a positive result, whereas failing is a negative result. Similarly, in business, profit for the year is a positive result. Losses incurred during the year is a negative result. So in matching concept, we are going to match our current year revenue with our current year expenses to find out the periodic result. So periodic profit we take. Periodic accrued revenue, how much of revenue business has earned minus matched expenses. Mathematically, we say pi. Pi representing profit if it is positive. If it's a negative value, it represents loss. Is sum of summation income. Whatever income is earned during the year. Remember, income includes both revenue as well as gains. Minus summation expenses. Expenses include both expenses and losses. So current year income will be matched with the current year expenses to find out the result. And if the pi value is a positive value, that means it is profit. If the pi value is a negative value, that means it is a loss. Now, what is the application of matching concept? Where do we do matching in the subject accounts? As a part of final accounts, we prepare profit and loss account. The objective of preparing profit and loss account is to find our current year profit or current year loss. Now, if we have to find our current year profit or current year loss, we have to compare, we have to match our current year incomes with our current year expenses. So meaning to say, all last year's and next year's income or expenses, if included in the current year figures, it must be excluded, because we have to find current year profit, and profit and loss account preparation itself is the application of matching concept. Now, a very interesting concept, that is realization or revenue recognition concept, we say. What do you mean by realization? What do you mean by revenue recognition? This concept basically speaks of the timing of recognition of revenue for a business. Timing of recognition of revenue has got nothing to do with the receipt of money. It is when do we record that transaction in our books. So once we have recorded a particular transaction in our books, that means we have recognized that particular revenue. When can the business assume that it has earned revenue? Now, basically, there are three stages in revenue recognition. First one is when an order is received. I will take an example. Say I am into garment business. I receive an order from my customer worth rupees 1 lakh. I have just received an order. Maybe over the phone, the customer has contacted me and said that I want 1 lakh rupees worth garments, say shirts, trousers, chudidar sets, suitings and shirtings, or ready to stitch kind of materials worth 1 lakh rupees. So the question is, I have received an order from my customer. Can I record 1 lakh rupees in my accounting books right now, just because I have received an order? Answer is no. Why? Because the order can be cancelled. Let's move to the second stage. When the order is executed, 1 lakh rupees worth order you had received 1 week ago. Now, as per the order, you have prepared all your merchandise, your goods are all ready. Now you are sending it to your customer. Question is, can you record that revenue in your books? The answer can be both yes and no. Why no? The customer may say it is not as per my specification. He may return the goods. Why yes? We have taken the order and accordingly we have prepared and we have executed the order, but we have not received the money. No problem. Even a credit sale, goods are supplied today, amount may be received tomorrow or after 1 week or after 1 month as agreed between the business and the customer. So important thing is recording it in the books. So if the goods are executed, goods are delivered to the customer, we will record it in our books as credit sale. So credit sale itself means that revenue has been recognized. That is 1 lakh rupees is due from our customer. Third stage is when the amount is received. Definitely in the second stage, it can be yes or no. In the third stage, it's a definite yes, because amount is, goods have already been delivered, amount has been received. So revenue recognition concept basically speaks about the timing of recognition of revenue. When do you record that item in the books? It has got nothing to do with the receipt of money. Remember this. So 3 stages. First stage, absolutely no. You cannot recognize that revenue at all. In the second stage, when the order is executed, you may or you need not, but definitely yes in the third stage. So let's continue with that. Now, what is the application of realization or revenue recognition concept? Amount paid and received, whatever amount we pay, whatever amount we receive, we show it in our cash book or we show it in our bank balance. If we have deposited it, the bank account or bank balance will show us the amount. Not only that, even receivable. See, earlier I took an example. We have supplied 1 lakh rupees worth goods to our customer. He has taken delivery, but he has not paid. So 1 lakh rupees is receivable. That is also recorded. Similarly, we might have paid and some of the portion, some part of the amount may be payable. So both receivable and payable are shown in the books, and these are shown as outstanding items. Receivable amount may be shown as in the list of debtors. Payable to a supplier may be shown in the list of creditors. Apart from that, we have outstanding expenses and outstanding incomes items also. So remember this. So amount paid and received are anyway shown, but receivable and payable, that is credit sale and credit purchase, are also shown in the accounting books. Now, coming on to the most important concept that we have in the list, and that is accrual concept. Business is following what is called as mercantile system of accounting. See, we have systems of accounting, and we have cash system, we have mercantile system, and some extent we have hybrid system also. We don't talk much about that because it is followed by only specific section of people, especially the professionals, follow hybrid system. What is this cash system? So anything that is paid, anything that is received in cash or through check or bank balance, only that is recorded in the books. So very few businesses follow cash system, especially not for profit organizations like charitable institution, clubs, sports association, temple, churches, mosques, places of, we say places of worship. All these are not for profit organizations. They follow what is called as cash system of accounting. But in a regular business, we follow what is called as mercantile system or accrual system of accounting. What does accrual system of accounting says? It is just an extension of revenue recognition concept. We studied paid and received are anyway recorded, but receivable and payable are also recorded in the books of the business. So this concept states that revenue is recognized when it is earned, and expenses is recognized when the obligation for payment arises. Now let's take 2 examples. Revenue is recognized when it is earned. When I sell goods worth 1 lakh to my customer and that person takes delivery, income is, revenue is recognized. I will record it in my books. Similarly, when as far as expenses are concerned, it is recognized when an obligation of payment arises. Now, for example, I have borrowed a loan from bank. And at the end of every month, I'm going to make the payment through EMIs. So payment made through EMIs means obligation for payment arises. I'm going to record it in my books. Let's take two examples now. As we have said, the accounting period is usually from April to March. Now, March month salary of 2021 is paid on 1st of April 2021. Point to note, March 2021 is of the financial year 2021. That is 1st April 20 to 31st March 21. 1st April 21 is the first day of the year 21-22. So 1st April 21 to 31st March 22, that is a period of 12 months. Now, last year's March month salary is paid in the year 21-22. So the question arises, March month salary has not been paid. Will it be recognized in the year 2021? The answer is yes. It will be recognized as an expense for the year ended 31st March 21 as outstanding salary. Salary to be paid. Salary which is outstanding. Second example, we have sold goods on 29th of March 2021 and the customer pays or gives us money only on 3rd of April 21. 3rd April 21 is 21-22 financial year. But we have sold the goods in the year 2021 on 29th March. So question is, will the revenue be recognized? The answer is yes. It will be recognized. Whatever amount is due, that amount will be included in the debtors list for the same year, that is 2021. Though the amount is received in next year, it's the revenue of the financial year 2021. So it will be recognized and such amount due from the customer will be included in the list of debtors. Let's continue now. Due to accrual concept, we have the 4 siblings, we say. The 4 siblings, which are those? If cash is received in advance, but revenue is not recognized. Revenue is not recognized, but cash is received in advance. That is an example of income received in advance. Let's imagine I am landlord. I have given my property, a house on rent to one of the tenant. And in the month of March, the tenant is paying me March month's rent, April and May month's rent. That means rent of the next year, that is April and May, is already paying us in this year itself. See, this is income which is received in advance. Income received in advance means income relating to next year has been received in the current year. As long as the April and the March month is over, it will continue to be shown as a liability. So why will income received in advance be shown as a liability? Let's take example. Suppose on 31st of March, the tenant comes and tells you that he has been transferred to another place and he would like to leave tomorrow. He would like to leave tomorrow. At that time, April and May month's rent, we may have to return it back to the tenant. Because income cash is received in advance, but the revenue is not recognized. Remember this, revenue is not recognized. As long as it is recognized, it will continue as a liability in the business's books. Next, if cash is not received, but revenue is recognized, that becomes outstanding income. Means it is receivable, and that which is receivable is an asset to the business. The third in the sibling list is payment is due for the expenses recognized. Expenses has been recognized, but the payment has not been made. That means it is payable, and that which is payable is an outstanding expense, and it is always a liability. Next, if payment is made, but expense is not recognized, that becomes a prepaid expense. Let's take example. You have a mobile phone. You are recharging your phone for 200 rupees. So you have got 200 rupees credit in your account. When will that become an expense? When you start calling, your balance of 200 rupees will go on decreasing. Suppose if you don't call, that becomes a prepaid expense. You have already paid, and as long as you don't utilize that, it will continue to remain as an asset. So remember, 4 siblings in accounts. More of it we will be discussing in the course of this subject. Income received in advance is a liability. Outstanding income is an asset. Outstanding expenses is a liability, and prepaid expenses, until and unless it expires, it will remain as an asset in the books of the business. Now, what is the application? See, on account of the accrual concept, we have items like outstanding expenses, prepaid expenses, outstanding income, incomes received in advance, depreciation. We have all these in our books of accounts. That is one. Second, now since revenue and expenses are recognized irrespective of receipt or payment of cash, we are recording not only what is received, but also receivable. We are recording not only what is paid, but also payable. So profit measured, at the end, when we prepare profit and loss account, the profit that we get, which is shown by profit and loss account, is not necessarily represented in cash, because we have non-cash items like depreciation. We have non-cash items like bad debts. We have items like outstanding expenses, outstanding income, prepaid expenses, income received in advance. So the profit as shown by the profit and loss account is not necessarily represented in cash. If the profit and loss account shows a profit of 30,000, you cannot take 30,000 cash and say, this is my profit. You cannot show it in cash. That is what is the application of accrual concept. Because of the many non-cash items and items like outstanding and prepaid and received in advance, profit as shown by the profit and loss account is not necessarily represented in cash. And the last concept that we have is objective evidence concept. You cannot have an entry in the books of the business without a bill or a voucher, or you may have a voucher, you may have a bill, such an amount in the bill should find a place in the books. So you cannot have a bill without an entry in the books, or you cannot have an entry in the books without a bill. So both ways, for every monetary entry made in the accounting books, there must be documentary evidence. There must be a proof complementing such entry. How you could have recorded the bill number, the invoice number must be recorded along with that particular transaction when you're recording it in the books. So related vouchers and bills are a must, and it serves as objective evidence. It's a proof, it's a documentary evidence, whatever amount that we have recorded in the accounting books. Let's take example. On some occasions, it will be difficult for a business to give a bill or get a bill for that matter. Let's imagine the managing director is traveling from the office to the airport in a car, in a rented, say, a cab aggregator like Ola or Uber. There is a flight for him to catch. He is going on a business trip. Now, since the office car is not available, he has hired a taxi. And from his office to the airport, he pays around 320 rupees. The taxi driver there may give him a bill, may not give him a bill. But 350 rupees he has paid, for which the the business person itself can record, can write a voucher saying that I have paid 350 rupees as traveling expenses from office to the airport on this particular date, sign. I certify that I have paid. So certified part is also considered if original bills or bills are not given. So related vouchers and bills are very, very important. So tax invoice, bill of supply, vouchers, all these are to be maintained in the business as a documentary evidence. So these are the 10 accounting concepts: business entity concept, then we had going concern concept, accounting concept, money measurement concept, cost concept, then we had dual aspect concept, matching concept, revenue recognition concept, accrual concept, and objective evidence concept. So if these concepts are understood, remember your foundation of the subject is very, very strong. So that completes the accounting concepts. Let's move to what is an accounting convention. Convention is nothing but a custom, a usage, a tradition, or a practice that the business follows in the preparation and presentation of financial statements. There are in all 4 accounting conventions. So when I say custom, usage, tradition, practice, what am I trying to say? If you look at a Hindu marriage, the boy and the girl, the bride and the groom, go around the sacred fire 7 times. We call it as Saptapadi, or we say 7 Janmas. For 7 lives, they will be together. It's a, relationship beyond Janmas, we say. Similarly, in a Christian marriage, the bride will wear that white gown or a white sari. So these are all traditions that we have in our day-to-day life, customs and practices that are followed. Similarly, in accounts also, we follow certain customs and traditions in preparing and presenting financial statements. And such practices, such customs are called as conventions. And we have 4: convention of materiality, convention of conservatism, convention of consistency, and convention of full disclosure. Let's look at convention of materiality. What do you mean by a material fact? Material information. Any information which is going to influence the decision making of the end user, whoever using the accounting information, if such a matter or such information is going to help him or her to take the right decision, then such a detail or such a fact is called as a material fact. And the convention of materiality says all material facts must be disclosed. Point to note, material fact may be monetary or it can be non-monetary. I have given an example of a non-monetary information. Information about the death of any important person in an organization is non-monetary. There is no effect at all. There is no monetary effect if someone in the organization dies. But the death of that significant person, important person, will have major impact on the future prospects of the company. Let's take, for example, a marketing manager dies, and marketing manager goes beyond his limits, and he has helped the company really excel in the recent times. So death of a marketing manager, by the look of it, doesn't cost any money to the company, but in the course of the working of the company, it will surely have a significant impact, monetary impact, because the sales may go down. We may not be able to replace such a person immediately. The kind of caliber that the marketing manager had. So what is the application of convention of materiality? Disclosure of accounting policies. As per accounting standard 1, we say AS1. So disclosure of accounting policies, which method are we using? Everything should be made available so that the end users take judgment based on complete knowledge. Next is convention of conservatism. See, by starting a business, we have already undertaken a risk. While we are doing the business, while we are accounting for the business, we have to be conservative. We have to be traditional. We have to follow a rule. And the rule is provide for all possible losses, but never anticipate profits. You need to make a provision for any losses that are likely to happen, but you can never anticipate profits. Imagine if there are any court cases against a business, and if we are very close to winning that case, we cannot write saying that this much of compensation we are going to receive, because it is against the convention of conservatism. You cannot anticipate profits. But if you realize that your case is weak, your side is weak in the court of law, and you are likely to be called upon to give or pay a compensation, business has to make arrangement for it. Provide for all possible losses, but never anticipate profits. That is the rule of convention of conservatism. And this particular rule is applicable in many places. When you are valuing your closing stock, it is always valued at cost price or net realizable value. That is market price, whichever is lower or whichever is less, not which is more. See, we are being conservative over here. We don't record whichever is more. Rather, we become traditional and we take whichever is less. So stock is always valued at cost price or net realizable value or market price, whichever is lower. Then business is going to make a provision for doubtful debt. Business is going to make a provision for discount on debtors. Business is going to show contingent liability as a footnote in the balance sheet, but not contingent asset. Contingent liability may or may not arise in future. Remember this. But contingent asset, again, may or may not arise in future, is not shown even as a footnote. Footnote is outside the balance sheet. You don't include that amount in the total of the balance sheet. So it is shown as a footnote. Contingent liabilities are shown, but contingent assets are not shown. So these are all various applications of convention of conservatism. Then we have convention of consistency. See, accounting policies and practices should remain consistent from one accounting period to another. Suppose if the business is following a particular method of depreciation, say written down value, even in the next year, business has to follow written down value only. Even in the third year, fourth year, fifth year, business should continue to follow the same method of charging depreciation. So it should remain consistent from one accounting period to another. Question is why? So that inter-firm comparison and timely decision making is possible. You can compare intra-firm. How was my performance in the last year in comparison to my current year? How is the performance of a Dunlop company in comparison maybe with MRF or a C8 company? I'm talking about tire manufacturing companies only. So inter-firm and intra-firm comparison is possible if policies and practices remain consistent. Now, though I have said that it should remain consistent, this convention doesn't say that you cannot change at all. You can change, you can initiate a change, but when you are making a change, say you are following straight line method of charging depreciation till last year, and from this year you are going to change it to WDV method, written down value method. You can change, but you have to answer two very, very important questions. First question is why the change? Suppose if the law has made it compulsory that businesses will follow only written down value method of charging depreciation. So far business has been following straight line method, but from this year onwards, they have to change because law has said you have to change. So why the change must be answered. And second question that you have to answer is how much is the impact of such change on our current year profits? That number must be highlighted. So how much is the impact of such change on the profits? That must be highlighted very clearly so that the end users are taking decision based on informed information, complete information, and not on incomplete information. So how much is the impact just because we have changed the method of depreciation? That must be highlighted very, very clearly in the profit and loss account so that the end users will know what actually is the profit of the business, excluding the change in profit due to change in method of depreciation. So consistency is a must. It doesn't say that you cannot change. You can change, but answer these two questions. Why the change and how much is the impact of such change on the profits? And final convention is convention of full disclosure. Anything and everything should be shown in detail. Breakup values are to be given. All accounting numbers must be disclosed in detail. Breakup values of numbers as to how we have arrived at must be disclosed at a particular point in the statement for quick reference. Today, if we look at the vertical form of presentation of companies, whether balance sheet or income statement, you record only numbers. How you have arrived all those numbers are available in what I should say notes to accounts. So notes to accounts will explain each of the item, how you have arrived at this number, which is appearing in the balance sheet or the income statement. But I'm giving a concrete example here as well. Let's imagine a manufacturing concern. A concern which is purchasing raw materials, converting those raw materials into finished goods and selling finished goods. Now, when such a concern is showing its closing stock, they can show closing stock is 2 lakh rupees, but that number 2 lakh isn't sufficient. Manufacturing concern has to show the breakup value of that 2 lakh rupees. In that 2 lakh rupees, how much is the value of the stock of raw materials? How much is the value of work in progress? That is, what is a semi-finished product or a product which has not undergone all the processes, and what is the value of the stock of finished goods? That should be clearly shown in a balance sheet. Similarly, if I'm talking about debtors, you cannot show in the balance sheet simply saying that debtors value is 80,000 rupees. You need to show the breakup of the value of debtors, debts which are due for more than 6 months and other debts. Why debts which are due for more than 6 months? Because those debts which are due for more than 6 months are debts which are likely to become bad debts. Business may incur a loss. See, when such details are given, the end user is going to study all these things and take decision about the present and the future of the organization and decide whether to stay invested or whether to move out. So even debtors value should be shown, in a breakup mode. Debts which are due for more than 6 months and other debts we say. So giving information about one number and giving and doing a post-mortem of that number, wherever through working note or accounts to notes, whichever. So complete details must be given. Breakup values of one number has to be given so that each one, the person who is using the accounting information takes informed judgments. So these are the four conventions, that is convention of materiality, convention of conservatism, convention of consistency, and convention of full disclosure. Coming on to the last concept that we have over here, and that is fundamental accounting assumptions. We have studied 10 accounting concepts and 4 accounting conventions. As per the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the following concepts and conventions are taken as fundamental accounting assumption. Out of 14, 10 plus 4, there are 3 things which forms a part of fundamental accounting assumption. What is the relevance? If any of these 3 fundamental accounting assumption is not followed in the business, in preparing and presenting its financial statement, the auditor will report about this fact in his audit report. Remember this. But if these 3 fundamental accounting assumptions are followed by the business in this year, auditor need not report in his audit report. So point understand, which are the 3 things out of 14? First one is going concern. Second one is accrual. And the third one is consistency. So these 3 things make up for the fundamental accounting assumption. So non-fulfillment of any of this must be reported by the auditor in his audit report. If it is followed and the auditor sees that it has been followed by the business in preparing its accounts, no mention is required in the audit report. But if it is not followed during the year, then going concern, for example, instead of calculating depreciation on the historical cost less depreciation value, if you are calculating on the market value, that is against going concern rule. It must be reported by the auditor. If only received and paid is shown, also receivable is shown, but payable is not shown, going against the concept of accrual. If consistency, method of depreciation has been changed, method of valuation of stock has been changed, but no reason is given why the change and nothing is mentioned regarding how much is the impact of such change, that is against consistency. If any of these 3 are not followed in preparing financial statements in the current year, the auditor must mention this in his audit report. But if it is followed, the auditor need not mention in this report. So these were the 10 accounting concepts, 4 accounting conventions, followed by the fundamental accounting assumptions. That is going concern, accrual, and consistency. So it has been a lengthy presentation, but we have successfully covered all concepts and conventions. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. And as usual, if you would like to connect, I would like to collaborate with me, I have given my email ID and my mobile phone. So thank you very much once again for your patient hearing, and please do subscribe and comment as to how did you feel about this particular presentation. So thank you once again.